that flows from God.
Thank you. We'll move now to your side, so if you have any comments to make.
We didn't
Or
answer the
question.
rest of the questions.
I know, I know. So please let me manage it in this way.
I can just mention one small point on the them issue. Again, it's not a major issue for the Christian because the Bible describes prophets sort of warts and all. As sinful beings, and it does not detract from their prophetness, but determines their prophetness is whether God spoke through them. But both Tor Andre and Anna Marie Schimmel in books on the Prophet Muhammad have traced how historically the earliest commentators, and I have worked through the Arabic of the earliest commentators on words like them and so forth, the earliest people accepted that Muhammad was a sinful man. But then the theology developed that he and the other prophets were without sin. And this has been shown by Tor Andre and Anna Marie Schimmel in the records. And so if sinlessness is considered to be a sign of prophethood, which apparently Muslims make it, it's difficult for us to put the two together.
Okay. Okay. Let's go to Chastain.
Just one other thing on the matter of
Finish one point at a time.
If you accumulate many questions, then the point is lost. So maybe we're going to take one point at the time, as we did yesterday.
Yeah, the answer will be long.
Would you
accumulate questions?
Then more points would be confusing. Let's take one at a time.
Let them take it. Okay.
And then we can one point each. Yeah.
Dr. Woodberry, with all due respect, what do you say about Jesus himself seeking forgiveness for his sin included with others? Now you're going to tell me that he is speaking as a man?
If you're referring to if you are referring to the Lord's Prayer, if you will notice that this follows the disciples saying, teach us how to pray. And so he puts it in that context of a plural. This is how you pray. When you pray, say,
Fine.
Our Father.
Fine.
He is not told to make this confession for himself. But in my reading of these verses I referred to in the Quran, which is repeatedly told to be in plain Arabic, there is no preface on teach us how to pray or anything like this. This seems to be a direct reference to Muhammad.
There is one point to mention here. First of all, I would like to use the Quran itself as a reference for the sins of Prophet Muhammad. Can I? Would this be satisfying to you if I do that?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, I will.
They may
I
or
will.
may not be mentioned in the Quran.
Fine. If the Quran talks and mentions something, right? Or the Bible talks and he mentions something, right? But then leaves it up to our imagination, it will be up to everybody's speculation. The Quran does not do that. That is not the style of the Quran. The Quran did not only hint, but deliberately explained issues in which the Prophet ﷺ did mistakes, and the Quran corrected him on accounts of different issues. I take, for example, in Surah Abasa, I don't know the number, I can give it to you now. Surah Abasa, in the last chapter of the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ has been brought to the attention that you, Prophet Muhammad, was sitting with rich people, and a poor blind man came approaching you. Surah number 80. And here you are not paying attention to him. You're paying attention to the rich. And the Prophet was sitting with those rich guys, the heads of the tribes, trying to call them to Islam. And he thought this is more important. So God is considered this a mistake. So he's guiding him to this. On another account, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verse, O Prophet Muhammad, why prohibit thee what is made halal for thee, what is made lawful for thee? And then he continued to refer to him that he did not want to marry this woman, the wife of Zayd, after she is divorced, because of the norm established in Arabia then. So God is telling him that is not right, it is wrong. We are establishing a new law here. Those claimed adopted sons, and the word claimed is أدعيائكم, the word claimed is used deliberately to explain to the Prophet and to the Muslims after him that those claims do not make those adopted sons real blood sons. So it is a correction to the Prophet. So when God reveals to him the word seek forgiveness for your sins, the Quran did not leave it to our speculations as to what kind of sins did he do. The Quran mentioned them. Had the Quran been the word of Prophet Muhammad, why should it mention his own sins? Or why did the Prophet ﷺ leave claims and accusations against his wife stay for 15 days? Why would Prophet Muhammad not answer immediately when two of the pagan Arabs approached him, Al-Nadr and Al-Harith, and they said, Prophet Muhammad, tell us about the story of the people of the cave. And he did not answer for 15 days, right?
Well, this is not a problem for the Christians because we don't...
I would like to add one more point. It is not a problem for the Christians because the Christians accepted Paul as an authentic source of revelation while Paul himself admitted lies. It is no problem for the Christians, but it is a problem for us.
Just one quick addition. The question of infallibility of the Prophet, I think, is a bit confusing here. When Muslims believe in the infallibility, not only of Prophet Muhammad, of all prophets, we're not saying that they're not humans, but infallibility applies to two aspects. One, the correctness in conveying the message of God. And that's why I disagree with Dr. Woodberry when we're saying the prophets in the Bible are sinful. We don't believe they were sinful in that sense. And there is no parallel in the Quran of David committing adultery with the wife of Uriah, or Aaron acquiescing to the making of the golden calf, or Solomon's heart being inclined to the pagan gods of his wives. There is absolutely no parallel, because according to Muslim understanding of infallibility, that it precludes any confusion of belief. Secondly, it precludes any major sin that blemishes the moral character of the person, that disqualifies him from being the exemplification of the moral, ethical message that he came to teach. And that's why we don't believe that David, for example, committed adultery. But in terms of making mistakes of interpretation or ijtihad, there is no problem at all on that, and that applies to Jesus, to Moses, to Muhammad, to any other prophet in history. It depends on how much information do we have about their life. And even the incident that Shakir mentioned was not an incident that the prophet really was attracted by the glitter of the rich. His rationale was that those are powerful people. Other people will follow them. If he attracted them to the truth, he would remove the oppression on the poor people and might also encourage other public to embrace Islam. And then the question that was raised earlier about attacking the caravans, I think that's a total misrepresentation, quite frankly, of what happened. Muslims were suffering, and the Prophet suffered, not unlike Jesus. Jesus suffered for 3 days, for 3 years. Prophet Muhammad and the Sahaba suffered for 13 years, all kind of torture. And they followed that. If Jesus lived more, he might have adopted a different approach. For 13 years, not 3 years, they suffered. So that concept was there of suffering and sacrifice. Now, when they were kicked out under persecution, lost their homes, lost their property, and it was reported by some historians that some of this property were taken away by the pagan Arabs. Muslims were more than justified to intercept the caravan of the unbelievers who took away their property. It's just like when you have a state of war in the modern terms. You have every right to have a blockade. You have every right to take the property of the enemy who have already taken your land and your property.
Thank you. Chastain, please.
Well, it is quite clear from the Quran itself that he's supposed to ask forgiveness for something. And even if you use a tactic which could be used, even with the sin of David, which is clearly attested to, you could say in Hebrew, you could say in Hebrew there are some 10 words for sin. And if you want to soften the effect of that, say, well, when in Psalm 51 David admits his sin, he doesn't use all 10 of those terms for sin, he uses just one. Then you could say, well, there's this other term, he didn't use that. But it really doesn't make any difference which term for sin you use or which level of sin. Surely some sins are worse than others, and we're not saying that Muhammad did the worst.